recording. Oh.
All right, baby. We are live. Insider betting is back. Jesse, appreciate you joining me today, brother. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to see Conor McGregor fight finally. The long wait is over. So let's go. Let's do
it. Hey, man. UFC 306. Just posted a TikTok about it. Go watch.
Yeah. Yeah, what is it? It's because Noche UFC is the show at the Sphere is going to be Noche UFC now. So people are speculating that UFC 306 is being moved to a different date specifically for Conor McGregor. That seems to be the speculation right now.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. It seems like a weird switch up because they it's I don't know. I talked about it in the TikTok, but it feels like you have like Riyadh Seasons is like an annual state funded event. I looked into it. It's like an entertainment and sporting event.
Right.
You also have it on Mexican Independence Day. So it's like you're celebrating two different cultures at once. It's weird.
The Saudis and the whites banded together to promote the Mexican Independence Day.
Literally.
Hey, multicultural. That's fine.
We'll leave it at that. But anyway, UFC 303. It's been a mess of a card. I'm actually excited for it. Obviously, we're not going to get to see Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler, but there are some really good fights on this fight, or some really good fights on this card. We're gonna do a quick run of the prelims here. Let's start with Payne Talbot versus Yanis here. Payne is a minus 1,600 favorite. He's a lock. He's probably gonna get the knockout as well. But I think it's just safe to go with him for a win. I actually threw him in a parlay because why not? Just one of those picks, right? He's better all around. He'll probably wait to find the right shots. I think the over under is 1.5 rounds at the moment. I'd probably take the over, but I do think that Payne is going to smoke him. He's just going to wait for the right moment to do so. But yeah, I know you really like Payne, right, Jesse?
I do. I think that he's obviously got superstar written all over him. This is actually the one prelim that I did want to talk about for a second because Gamori is the guy, I don't know if anybody remembers this, but at UFC Paris, Gamori is the guy that got kicked in the groin area, but the kick missed. And his opponent, I forget his name, who he lost to, Gomez, I think it was his name. Could be Gomez. Kicked him in the groin, and the ref didn't call it. And then the ref ended up calling it a loss for Gamori. He just called the fight off, and it went as a TKO because Gamori wasn't fighting back because Gamori was trying to sell that he got kicked in the groin. So we still haven't actually seen a lot from this guy. I did a little bit of research. I watched him because I was like, I mean, this is the ultimate value on the card, right? This is the best value you're going to get on this entire card. So I watched a little bit of his fights in Brave FC. He's got some good skills. My only issue with the odds here is that Payne Talbot has only been fighting MMA since he was 18 years old. He's obviously a stud. I would consider a sprinkle here just for the hell of it because it's the best odds you're going to get. And like this is kind of a prove it fight for Payne Talbot. But I just thought that the odds were interesting because we don't know a lot about Gamori yet. We know a lot about Talbot. We don't know a lot about Gamori yet. So I just thought it was interesting. I do think Payne Talbot's going to win, but I would consider a sprinkle on Gamori.
That's fair. Moving on to the next fight in the prelims, though, we got Charles Air Jourdain versus John Silva. John Silva is ancient, as you can see. He's 44 years old. He's been in the UFC for a while, or been fighting for a while at least. Striker versus striker matchup. Charles had a close split decision loss to Sean Woodson in his last fight, but what he really struggled with was Sean Woodson's reach. John Silva is a smaller fighter, as you can see in the card here. But I do think he is going to out-grapple him. He's got that 100% takedown defense versus that 48. He also averages a takedown per fight. I think it's going to be a slow and boring fight, but I think John Silva is going to win as a minus 102 underdog, which is weird when you have two minuses and one of them still the underdog, but it is what it is. Pretty even fight. But yeah, so I got John here.
Minus, 50-50 odds on a guy 16 years younger. I would consider Jourdain. That might be where we disagree. I mean, his striking leaves a lot to be desired, but he's been in fights that can be very boring. You're absolutely right. A lot of his fights go the distance. So I would wager this one probably does go the distance. But I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about John Silva, but that's a big age gap, man. 16 years, that's a huge age gap.
Look, the thing with Charles Jourdain is he gets that Air nickname because of the way he fights, right? He kind of has like that untraditional style of fighting. He'll jump around a lot. He'll he'll toss him. But I think that he waits for that kind of like the wow knockout or the wow moment. And if he doesn't get it, then that puts him in trouble. And I think that's kind of what we saw against Sean Woodson. And I don't think he'll catch Sean, but there's that odd chance, that puncher's chance that he does catch him and that's how he wins. But if it goes to decision, I just don't see Jean losing here. But you're right. The 16-year gap is usually we'll go with the younger guy, but this time we'll switch it up.
It's going to be funny though, because if the decision is announced and the guy says Jean Silva, last time when it was Sean Woodson, he thought he was saying Charles Jourdain. So it'll be interesting what happens there.
Yeah, he'll probably wait a little bit.
Yeah, he will. He'll temper his reaction for sure.
Yeah, but hey, you know what? It's tough. I'm Canadian too, so it's tough going against Canadian.
Yeah,
I'm fading. There's 2 Canadians on this card, and I'm fading both of them. So a little foreshadowing there.
Fading Canadian MMA. It's not unusual, brother.
No,
I'm joking. Yeah.
Next up, we got Cub Swanson versus Andre Fili. Very similar fighters. They're both very well rounded in a sense. I do think that Cub is slightly the better striker. He's just more accurate for the most part. And then while Andre Fili is better at grappling, his last fight for Andre Fili was actually a disgusting knockout loss versus Dan Ige. I don't know if you remember that one, but
yeah, it was gross. It was bad.
Yeah, it was brutal to watch. This is one where don't know much. I think Fili is probably going to win. The age gap is what tossed me over the edge here with Cub Swanson being 40. But I do think that Fili is going to get him being a minus 230 favorite here.
Yeah, it's hard to dismiss the plus 190 odds for Cub Swanson. I'm just trying to remember who he fought last time. I'm sorry. Who Cubs? Because I know he got a win recently, a pretty good win that was sort of surprising. Hakeem Dawodu. Yeah, okay. He put on a good fight, but he hasn't fought in, what is it, like, geez, it's been like 8 months. He hasn't fought. Yeah, I think I'm leaning with Fili here. Minus 210, is that what it is?
Minus 230, actually.
230. I'd consider a finish. I think that we might be seeing the retirement of Cub Swanson fairly soon. So I'm going to take Fili as well.
It's interesting because Fili, he had a lot of hype early on in his MMA career. Like his second fight in the UFC was against Max Holloway. So it feels like his trajectory was he was tossed into the big leagues too soon. Took a loss. I think he got knocked out that fight and kind of lost his chin onwards and kind of had a back and forth career. But yeah, I'm going to Fili for this one. But our featured prelim of the night is fellow Canadian Marc-Andre Barreau versus Joe Pyfer. I think you had him on the show not that long ago, right?
Who?
Joe Pyfer? Didn't we interview him recently?
No. We were supposed to get Joe Pyfer. No, we did not get Joe Pyfer. No.
That's what happened. We were talking to him. It's okay. Joe, we want you on the show if you're watching.
Yeah, exactly.
Minus 290 favorite versus plus 235 for the Canadian. As you can see by the stats here, Mark throws heavy. He lands about 6.19 strikes per minute versus 3.66. I believe, and I don't quote me on this because I don't have the stats pulled up in front of me. I believe Mark also absorbs like 5 per minute. So he throws a lot, but gets hit a lot. I think if Joe catches him, it's done. Joe is coming off of a loss to Jack Hermanson. I think it's one of those fights where he was on such a hot streak and then he took that loss. The UFC didn't take him to lose. And it feels like one of those fights where the UFC is like, we want you back in the win column. Here you go. So that's kind of why I'm leaning towards Joe. Again, minus 290 favorite, hard to go against him. But yeah, that kind of wraps up our prelims. I don't know if you got anything to say about Joe here.
Well, Joe Pyfer has something to prove here because he is coming off of, I hate to use this term, but a lot of MMA fans like to use the term. He's coming off of getting fraud checked, quote unquote, so to speak, which I disagree with because he lost to Jack Hermanson, who's a great opponent. So there's no shame in that, but he was a favorite in that fight. There was one, Marc-Andre lost on the UFC 297 card. He was one of the 7 Canadian men who lost on that card to Chris Curtis. And he was the one that I felt like where he kind of got screwed. He lost in a split decision. I thought that he actually did enough to win that fight. It's worth considering Barreau just because of how Pyfer looked his last time. But I think Pyfer will learn from his mistakes and he'll bounce back and get this one.
Yeah, I think so. What up, T-Bags? I see you left a comment here. Let us know who's going to win this. But I think, like you said, Prochazka, I think it was actually his first 5-round fight. It was the main event that night. And I think he got gassed. So it's hard to call him a Prochazka on that one. Might have just kind of
No, I hate that term, but that's what was being thrown around after that fight.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I feel you. All right. We got the main card. This is actually one of the fights I'm most excited for. Ian Machado Gary, as some would call him, Ian the Cut Gary. Not going to be that guy, just tossing it out there versus Michael.
Well, you just did it.
Yeah, I'm just putting it out there. Some people will call him that, not me.
I'm calling Joe Pyfer a fraud check. You're calling Ian Gary a cuck. Not a good
start. Ian Gary is our honorary Brazilian of the night because I think Brazilians are going to get a clean sweep at UFC 303. So I'm gonna include Ian Gary in there. This is like a 50-50 toss-up for me. I think what puts me towards Ian Gary is that, like we saw last fight, he will put on a boring fight if it means that he's going to win, and he will do anything it takes to win. So he doesn't care what you, the fan, thinks. He just wants to get a win in his column and move closer to that championship fight. Michael Venom Page, on the other hand, he is very open about wanting to be flashy. He wants us to watch him. So he's probably going to go for the knockout. He's going to open himself up a little bit. I do think it probably goes to decision, but there's the potential knockout as well. I think on either side. Ian extremely accurate with his strikes. MVP, we've seen him knock him out before, so we'll kind of have to see how it goes. But I am leaning towards Ian Gary.
Yeah, this is probably one of the tougher ones to call, other than maybe the main event. But I think there's like a theme on this card for me about underdogs, where I think that like every underdog on this card really does have a chance. And it's reflected in the odds. They're all very close odds, so it's not like traditional underdogs. It's not like a major underdog or anything. Michael Page is kind of at that point in his career where he needs to get a big win. I mean, where he needs to keep winning in order to get a title shot. Like, time isn't on his side as much as it is on Ian Gary's. This might be the one where I actually kind of like the odds the most, just because Michael Page really stifled Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland couldn't land anything, and Page just kind of put on a masterclass just in MMA, just the ability to sort of manage distance, keep at range, and outpoint, a pretty technical striker in Kevin Holland. Ian Gary is definitely better than Kevin Holland, but I see like kind of a 50-50 matchup just in talent here. They're very similar. I love the fight. I kind of just I just really like the odds for Michael Page. I'm 50-50 on it. Yeah. But I think that I'd be comfortable betting him on the money line, because I think that it's actually like he's got the experience to beat a guy like Ian Gary.
Yeah. What I will say is that we've seen Ian Gary rocked before.
Yeah.
But he's recovered, and he's obviously gone on to win those fights because he's still undefeated. But if MVP catches him, I think it's lights out. That's the thing. I don't think he gets rocked by MVP. I think if there's that point where he could get rocked, it's a finish. That's just the level, and that's no disrespect to Ian. That's just the level that MVP is on compared to the other opponents that have rocked Ian Gary in the past.
Yeah. And I've made this point before about Gary, as obviously the fans, he's sort of fallen out of grace a little bit with a lot of UFC fans, but I think that he needs a big knockout against a big opponent. I was hoping he would fight Colby Covington, and that, because I thought that was his like path to redemption with UFC fans, was be to knock out Colby Covington. I think if you can knock out Michael Page, I think that's, who's like a legend in MMA. I think that's pretty damn good. I think that would be a good start for him to sort of getting back on track to like superstardom. So I think this is a huge opportunity for Ian Gary to get back in the good graces of those MMA fans.
Yeah, no, I agree. But anyway, on to potentially the most boring fight of the night. We got the women's bantamweight title eliminator fight. We got Myra Bueno Silva versus Macy Chason. But and I don't say it's going to be the most boring fight because it's a women's fight, okay, guys? But I think that it's just going to be Macy trying to hold down Myra the entire time. We saw Raquel Pennington do it. We saw Holly Holm do it against Myra. I am leaning towards Myra to win. I do think overall she's the better fighter. But I do think it's just going to be just like a lot of holding, a lot of waiting. Probably going to end up going to decision. But somehow Myra sneaks it off. Could be a sub, could be something like that. But yeah, I think we're in for a snooze fest here.
You know, I would consider, I totally agree with that. And I would consider Myra by submission if I'm just looking to make any money here.
Yeah.
What is it? What is the winning method here? Myra by submission is a plus 300. I would consider that. But yeah, that performance against Raquel Pennington was just so unimpressive that I hope that she shows up trying to be aggressive with her jiu-jitsu and her grappling and not just defensive and holding on for dear life, because that was one of the worst fights of all time.
Yeah. But submission is a great bet. She's 7 of her 10 wins have been by submission.
Yeah.
So that says it all there. But anyway, the feature fight of the night. This fight specifically, the whole card's been a mess. But this fight specifically has been a mess. Originally, it was Jamal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree. And then we saw Roundtree, he tested positive for some PEDs, had to pull out. Then we had Jamal Hill versus Carlos Alberg. And then Jamal Hill goes out with a knee injury. And now we have Carlos Alberg versus Anthony Smith. And then I actually don't remember why Alberg pulled out, but
injury, I think. Injury. I forget what it was.
I don't know if it was specified. So anyway, now we got Anthony Smith versus Roman Dolidze. It's an interesting fight. Last time we talked about Anthony Smith, I faded him so hard. I gave him no chance against Vitor Petrino. He was a plus 425 underdog.
Yeah,
unbelievable. And I hate fading fighters two fights in a row when they've proven me wrong. And he's only a plus 20 this time. He's not a plus 425 anymore. So this is a much closer fight than last time on paper. I am still going with Roman Dolidze, though. I do think he's going to get the upper hand here. He is the minus 142 favorite. He is a great grappler, although he did go 0 for 4 against Imavov. He is coming off of 2 losses, but I think he's going to try to get back in the win column. And that's why I got him both on short notice. But this fight specifically is probably as 50-50 as it comes, just considering that Anthony Smith proved literally everyone wrong last time. So yeah, it's a tough one.
It's not only that all those fights were changed, where there were like all these switches in the opponents, but also Roman Dolidze is a middleweight, and Anthony Smith, and they're doing this fight at light heavyweight, so he's fighting 20 pounds heavier than he normally does. Last fight that Dolidze fought, I believe he lost to was it Imavov?
It was
Did he get finished by Imavov?
I don't know if he got finished, but his last 2 losses were against Imavov and Vittori, and also
majority decision.
Majority decision. So I was gonna say there's a typo in the graphic. Apologies, guys. Definitely not a featherweight bout, but thought I'd point that out so you guys don't think we're all dummies. But anyway, go on, Jesse.
Oh, I see that. Yeah. So Dolidze got rocked a few times in that fight. I mean, pretty badly. It's weird taking a short notice fight, 20 pounds heavier than you're used to. I don't know. I just kind of have trouble of avoiding the underdog odds for Anthony Smith here. The advantages to him in terms of like how this all played out. I don't know what this does for either fighter. That's the weird thing about this. I don't know what it does for either one of them in terms of like ranking. It's just kind of like it's just like a money fight. I'll take Anthony Smith. I think that like with the situation, the way it's played out, I feel like it favors him in some ways. So. And plus, like you said, we kind of ruled him out last time, although I did say that he was the high-value underdog of the night on that card. I didn't bet on him. I didn't have the balls to bet on him, but I still said it.
Gotta put your money where your mouth is, you know?
I know. But yeah, it's just a weird fight, man. It's super weird situation.
Yeah, and you're right. It doesn't really do much for either. Like Roman's unranked, so it probably put him in the top 10 or at the very least.
Well, he's
ranked.
unranked because it's at light heavyweight. He's ranked as a middleweight. That's
Yeah,
why. So it's
yeah.
like,
So
he's gonna go back to middleweight after this. So
yeah, but what does it mean for Anthony Smith too, right? Like if he beats
right.
this guy, it's like again, doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things. But at least the fight's happening. And for UFC 303, we got to be happy with that because of all the changes.
I know people were hoping that Jiri would have to pull out and then they would put Anthony Smith in versus Alex Pereira because they have a little rivalry going on. So that would be kind of a hilarious turn of events. But not gonna
I also think it's crazy how, like, I understand that Anthony Smith was a massive underdog and I understand that it was a massive win for him, but he fully believes that once he wins this, he deserves a title fight. Which, like, in some perspectives, sure, but in the other perspectives, he is 2 in his last 5. And this would make him 3 in his last 5 on a 2-fight win streak.
Right.
Does he really deserve a title shot after this against a guy who is not in the division? And anyway, we'll let him believe what he wants. I don't think so, but fun fight.
Yep,
we can watch anyway.
Anthony Smith by knockout or submission is interesting. I'll say that. Like there's value in that fight if you feel like betting on it. I'm probably not going to.
Yeah. What I will say is that Roman only loses by decision. He's got 3 losses on his record, and all 3 have been by decision. So I don't think he gets knocked out or submitted. But I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah, that's you might be right.
Yeah. Co-main event of the evening. This was probably going to be the most fun fight of the night. Besides the main event should be great, but I love seeing T-City fight. We got Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopez. Lopez had an incredible knockout against Sadiq Youssef in his last fight. I think all 3 of his last fights have gone like 90 seconds each or something like that. I think they were saying that, but don't quote me on that one. Very fun fight. The one thing I will say is that this fight probably won't go to decision. Who wins? Great question. Ortega is durable. Obviously, we saw his fight against Volk. Him almost beating Volk. That was a great fight. This feels like another vet versus up-and-coming prospect type of fight. If Diego Lopez wins, he is easily on his way to the title eliminator fight, possibly even the championship fight. Depends on how things line up. He's got the reach advantage. He's got the height advantage. He's got the striking advantage. He's great on the ground and with his BJJ. He might not be great at takedown specifically, but once he's on the ground, he'll try and take your back and submit you. I hate that I'm leaning towards Diego Lopez, but I've been leaning towards all the favorites this card, which is kind of a shame because I'm usually the guy to pick underdogs. Last week, I got who was it? Volkov versus Sergey Pavlovich. Got that one right.
That was a good pick.
That was plus 250 there, so that was a good one. But yeah, I'm going towards the favorite. I don't know, man. I hate picking against T-City. I love watching him. I think most people love watching him, but I got Diego Lopez winning.
Let me say this about this fight. It came out of nowhere, and it was like beautiful when it came out because it was just like such a like a eye-opening matchup. Brian Ortega, in his since he's been in the UFC, he had a winning streak that involved every single fight that he has been in, with the exception of 2. 1 win, 1 loss, has been a finish. He won via unanimous decision against Korean Zombie, and he lost unanimous decision against Volk. He's been up against Frankie Edgar, Cub Swanson, Max Holloway, Korean Zombie, Volkanovski, Yair Rodriguez. This dude has been through the gauntlet at featherweight. Diego Lopez lost to Evloev on a short notice fight. And he's beaten, and he's gotten a couple of wins. And I'm getting underdog odds for Brian Ortega. Like, I understand that Lopez is like the hot ticket right now, and he could be a title contender very, very soon if he wins this fight. I like Ortega in this situation. I still think he's young. I still think he's in his prime, and I think he's got a new mindset. I think he's like refocused, and his only losses have literally come against like Hall of Famers and Yair Rodriguez, but that was because of a shoulder injury. Let's remember, like he pulled out his shoulder. We don't know what would have happened had he not gotten injured in that fight. So it's like really the two clean losses he has are against the greatest featherweights of all time. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and he's getting underdog odds against a relative newcomer. I like Diego Lopez a lot, but I think this is kind of like slam dunk tank the value for Ortega. So I think we disagree on this one.
It gives off the vibes of what's it called, of Vitor Petrino beating Anthony Smith, or other way around, Anthony Smith beating Vitor, or last
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Where it was Whitaker versus Alex Skarov, and Whitaker still beat him, right? So everybody fades the vet because they're like, they're too old, whatever. But then the vet still comes out on top. So I fully agree that I think it could be that situation. I actually faded Diego Lopez last time versus in his fight against Sadiq Youssef. But I was really impressed during that fight. So yeah, I gotta go towards Diego here.
It's a good one. It's like I can't help it. So you're picking all the favorites. I'm picking all the underdogs so far. I like all the underdogs in this card.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
We're both gonna go 50-50. That's how it's gonna play here.
Yeah.
And I think on this next fight, knowing we're probably gonna go opposites here, but who knows? Main event of the night: Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka. Fun fact for those watching: Jiri is Jesse's favorite fighter, I believe. Maybe don't quote me on it, Jesse. You can confirm.
Well, really quick, we just got a question about Conor versus Chandler canceled. Yes, Conor versus Chandler was canceled. They were supposed to headline this event, and Jiri and Alex stepped in on short notice to replace the event. Conor broke his toe a few weeks ago.
Pinky toe, I should add. It's absolutely ridiculous. This guy breaks a pinky toe and drops. Whatever. He needs to win.
He's been out for 3 years because he snapped his leg. I guess we could wait a couple months longer, but I get what you're saying. It's like he used to mock people for this sort of thing.
At the end of the day, I think he's fucking with Chandler, bro. I think he just wanted I think he wanted someone else. I don't think he wanted to fight Chandler. He's like, there's a road fight. We'll see what happens. But we talked at the beginning of the episode that rumors for UFC 306, but we'll see what happens. That's a few way there. But anyway, this is
go ahead. No, because you were asking me. I guess I could go first here because yes, Jiri Prochazka is my favorite character. He's a Mortal Kombat character. He's my favorite fighter. Alex Pereira is close. He's probably in my top 3 right now in the UFC. This is an amazing fight, and I went back and I rewatched the first fight because UFC posts all of the free fights when they're leading up to a pay-per-view, so they'll post the free fights on YouTube. I rewatched it. Jiri was winning the fight. I know that obviously he got knocked out, so it's like, hey, whatever. But he was winning the fight on all judges' scorecards in the first round, and he was doing some really great things in that fight. It was also his first fight back after tearing his shoulder. Getting underdog odds with Jiri here, who is a better wrestler, better grappler, and he is an elite striker too. He's obviously not the kickboxer Alex Pereira is. Nobody is, but he was landing on Pereira in that fight. And he was also able to take him down pretty easily. I think that he has a method here. He has a formula to win, and I think that I'm taking Jiri Prochazka here. I think that he's going to get it done. I think that he's going to find a way because I really like what he was doing in that first fight.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think that there's a good this is the thing. It's the second time running it back. It's hard to beat a guy you lost to. We saw Izzy do it against Pereira. Can it be done? 100%. We've seen Pereira on the ground before. I'm just worried that Jiri's last fight against Rakic, we still saw the calf kicks being an issue.
Right. Yes. And 100% true.
That's my worry, is that if they continue to be an issue, then there just isn't there just isn't much Jiri's going to be able to do, because if anybody's going to get you with the calf kicks, it's Pereira.
I just sent you that graphic, by the way, Adam.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
But anyway, that's kind of my take. It's I'm going Poetan here.
So it's tough. Like, Jiri does these things in fights where he puts his head out there a lot to sort of induce action from his opponent, right? And that's not something that you can really do against a guy like Pereira with a quick left hook, who really doesn't have to hit you with his hardest shot in order to clip you, in order to knock you down. It's really just a matter of, I think that Jiri has a clear formula. Like I said, he has to get him down. He has to find a way to kind of he can't make the fight too dirty with Poatan. He has to find, like, he can't stand an exchange. He has to get him down. He has to do all he has to make the fight a little dirty, I should say. He has to get him down. He has to do all the hard work. And because I think that there's a clear advantage there, or at least a clear path where we haven't seen Pereira have to fight his way out of grappling exchanges too often. So I think that's what he's going to have to do, because I also think he has a chance to knock him out. So I think if he can get the takedown threat early, where Pereira is concerned about the takedown, then that's where Jiri's overhand rights, because he lands some fucking power, man. Jiri can really pack a punch. I think that he can get him, because Poatan has shown that he does have a suspect chin at times. So I think that the win is there for Jiri, and I really like the short notice nature of it too. Pereira is fighting on a broken toe, 2 broken toes. It's like there is a clear way Jiri can win. It's really a coin flip, to be honest.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a roadmap, right, for Jiri to win this one, especially when you've already been in the cage with someone, or in the octagon with someone. You get he's got a feel for his distance, right? So like that question mark's out of the way now. Now it's just about, can he do what he's planning to do, what he's game planning to do, right? So we'll have to see. But with that being said, I think I got the wrong graphic here. Damn. Give me a second here, guys. Parlay.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I can just say, like, if you go back and you rewatch the fight, there were like a couple of exchanges early on where Jiri was really able to get Alex up against the cage, and then he was sort of able to use the cage, like, to sort of push Alex up and lift him up and get him down. And then in the second round, he was trying to do the same thing, and then that's how he ended up getting knocked out. He got Alex up against the cage, and it was sort of like the same exact situation, but Alex made an adjustment. I think Jiri has a tendency to just get a little too crazy, like a little too aggressive. I think that if he can just avoid that, if he can just, he almost has to play the long game, not try to like get the finish early, because I think that he has the advantage where if like things start to get ugly, he can get the submissions and things like that, where he's like he shouldn't try to get it away too soon, because I think that just favors Pereira way too much.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree. We'll see what happens. It really is a coin flip, but it's a great main event considering what we were supposed to have, which was Conor versus Chandler. So
yeah, it's honestly the best they could have done, to be honest. We did an episode of fight season, and I was like, if there was one fight that they could do on short notice that I think that would be a viable replacement, it would be this one. So
yeah, there weren't a lot of options considering that what was available in the moment, right?
Exactly.
But anyway, parlay of the night. This was a tough one. I didn't have a lot of prop bets that I thought were good for this one. It took me a while to put together, honestly, but here's what I got. Payne Talbot, money line, easy, minus 1,600. He's probably a lock. Might as well toss him in there. It barely changes the parlay, but might as well boost our odds where we can, right? Ortega Lopez. I don't think the fight's going the distance. There's probably going to be a submission. There's going to be a knockout. Something's going to happen. I don't think they're going to go all 3 rounds.
It is 3 rounds. It's not 5. It's 3.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I believe so. I believe it's 3. But I don't think it goes all 3. So I think we're going to see a knockout or submission there. Either one of them could pull either one off. So we'll take it. Smith versus Delidze over 1.5 rounds. Like I mentioned earlier. They're both on short notice. I think they're going to take the first round to feel themselves out, and then we might start seeing things happen. But I do think it's going to go over 1.5 at minus 230. And then John Silva, I forget exactly how many he lands per minute here. He lands 5.83 strikes per minute. You got to get him over 68.5. I think he's going to hit the over here at minus 115. I do have him as the winner. $100 gets you 430. Parlay of the night. Think it's a lock. Anyways, Jesse, anything else to add here, brother?
No, I like it. I'm curious how much it actually improved your bet to add Peyton Talbot, but I think if it adds a little more juice. The only one I don't know, because I do agree with most of them, is the Gene Silva one. is like, because if that becomes a grappling match and Jordan starts taking him down a lot, that number might get reduced. But I actually like this one more than you did last week, and I'm trying to remember which one you did last week, and I'm blanking on it. But no, we didn't do one last week. I'm sorry, the week before, UFC Vegas. But I'm putting together a little one of my favorite underdog picks of the night. It's a plus 2438. It's my underdog theme of the night. These are my favorite underdog picks. Michael Page, Anthony Smith, Brian Ortega, and Jiri Prochazka. They're all small underdogs. Like nobody's more than a plus 130. So, but you get a little extra value, but it's a plus 2438. So if all four of those guys win, $10 gets you $230. Let's go. So
nice.
Yeah. Or 100 gets you 2,300. So
it's not bad.
Just that's one that's one I like. Obviously that's going to go against your picks, but Ortega can still beat Lopez and your parlay still hits. So
yeah, we'll see what happens. You got to hedge them. It's good to have multiple parlays going.
Yeah. That's when I would put like $10 on. I'd more likely put $100 on yours, and then I put 10 on mine, kind of deal.
Yeah. Not financial advice, by the way.
Correct. And these odds are brought to you by DraftKings, by the way. So if you notice different odds, it's because these are from DraftKings.
Correct. But DK got the best odds out there.
Hell yeah, brother.
Appreciate you joining me, Jesse. Been another week of insider betting. We're gonna be back next Thursday. What is it? 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time.
Oh, I forgot to mention my take here. My take on Jiri, because I headlined this episode that Jiri Prochazka wants to fight Alex Pereira without spirits and rituals. I think Jiri is going to take. He's got a plan. I think that Jiri is going to be doing some spirits and rituals and prayer of his own. He's a very spiritual guy. I think he's going to do something to counteract Pereira's spirits and rituals. So that's my take. That's why I'm picking Jiri.
Easy.
So there you go. Sorry.
Set him up with the witch out there, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome, brother. Okay. As always, it's been a pleasure. We'll talk to you next week, bro.
Peace.